To be the best in one's passion or trade is a desire we've all had, but the journey to get there is long and arduous, so most of us likely never achieve our goal, and so it becomes just a memory. Something has always drawn me to stories about people striving to become the best in their field, especially when it's in an art or skill. The competitive nature and setup of this journey is sure to bring along many great stories about battles and challengers. In Initial D, we see lots of characters who strive to become the best street racer, and you can really tell how passionate and proud each racer is about their racing abilities. They love their cars, which they place so much faith in, and they seek to protect their titles and land from challengers. The energetic world this narrative is set in, with several teams comprised of many individuals, all striving to bring glory to their names and comrades, it's just so fascinating. With such a vibrant and intense racing scene, filled with many persons, who would be the main character? Our protagonist, Takumi, is like Minnie, an average high schooler. He works a part-time job at a gas station, and also drives at night delivering tofu for his dad. Everyone has their own history with racing, be it wins or losses, that have helped form them, and there are complicated relationships between the small street racing community. Nemesises, allies, everyone is seeking to prove that they are the fastest racer. Takumi's story is exciting, as he's completely disrupted the previously established local racing community. Ironically, this was unintentional on Takumi's part. Takumi's racing techniques and style has developed from his years of delivering tofu at night. It's pretty interesting to see how he's obtained these skills to simply make his deliveries faster. He starts out uninterested with racing, finding driving just a natural, mundane job for himself. But as he gets challenged by others' techniques and abilities, and as he learns how much racing means to many, including his friends, he does develop more and more into a street racer. There are no mustache-twirling, world-end wanting villains, there are just challengers. And while yes, they can start out as overconfident jerks who are edgy, it's only because they have pride in racing. Racing gives these people a sense of accomplishment. Even if they work at some gas station, they still have strength and freedom when they're racing in their car against an opponent. That's why they have these facades of pride and confidence. They believe that losing could cost them the only thing that makes them feel alive, the passion that consumes their otherwise mundane life. While none of these characters are super deep or philosophical on the surface, they still have moments of nuanced and captivating emotion. Of course they aren't going to be super deep or sophisticatedly smart. They are mostly teenagers or young adults who have simply found the one thing that gives them power and pride, but there's still some great characterization of these racers. Be it the car that they drive, their techniques, or their philosophy on racing, it helps distinguish every character, and we come to learn how they've obtained these traits. They all have different opinions on what the most important technique is. Some people prefer the nice speedy straights that turbos provide, while others prefer the lower powered engines that allow for more precise steering and drifting. We see all of these ideas and techniques conflict throughout the races, and we naturally learn more and more about them through the inner monologues of racers, or the commentary from spectators. Something that makes me love these techniques and racers even more is the amateur nature of them. None of these street racers are professional drivers, at least not in the first stage of Initial D, so their abilities are still ripe to be honed. Lots of racers ignore some obvious weaknesses because of how prideful they've become, which leads to their obvious downfalls. Because of the talented voice actors, the moments when racers have to acknowledge their inevitable defeat, usually brought on by prideful ignorance and underestimating their opponent, it just feels genuine. We are reminded that these people still genuinely care about the art of racing, and not just about titles. Although, those do help enthrall some. A big flaw in many characters is their disruptful pride, which they've gained after so many victories. And Takumi is able to exploit his prideful and misjudging opponents due to his unordinary nature. He has just started to race, and so he doesn't have the bad habits that can be acquired, and he rarely underestimates his opponents. It's an interesting concept that enlivens the races, that feel like lively dialogues themselves. Takumi does start to grow a pride and desire to race as the story progresses, and we get to see his natural progression of apatheticness to passion. Takumi is empowered by racing, and it allows him to express himself when his shyness occasionally prevents him. The story has an interesting portrayal of pride. It's not inherently bad to have confidence and passion for a skill. These feelings can give motivation and energy to one's development, but it can also come to prevent the growth in a skill as well. Racing is an ever-growing field, with new challengers appearing like Takumi, whose techniques and ideas are different, and so if you grow compliant in your prideful self-assuredness, you'll inevitably lose. This type of pride can be poisonous to a racer, but through losing to these newcomers, a new pride and passion is born. That's what I like about the races in the show. There's always something to be gained. In fact, losing is sometimes the best for one's journey, as it can show them where to develop. The voice acting and narrative really helps portray the growth of these characters, and not only as racers. I also love the respect everyone has for each other. It really makes everyone more likable. Even if some more antagonistic challengers start out as rude and disrespectful, by the end, we can tell that they really do respect their opponents for their shared passion in racing. Racing is also just really exciting in this anime. Aside from hoping that Takumi wins the race, we get some enticing challenges. Every race has some kind of new skill or technique that has to be conquered or overcome, whether it's the unique turns of Mount Akina that are foreign to some drivers, or the use of turbocharged engines. It's really fun to see Takumi adapt to these challenges, especially when opponents are so sure he'll fail. The visuals are also pretty good. The most obvious thing that some may criticize this anime for is the CG cars, but I don't really agree with this. Aside from the fact that these races would be almost impossible without CG, they also have some pretty creative uses for it. The direction of the camera in the 3D space is so well used in races, allowing for an ever-flowing battle with continuous movement, that I think this design choice is more of a benefit than a negative. Yes, a lot of the car models look like they came from a PS1 game, but if you continue to watch, you will realize that they did some pretty impressive scenes with them. I don't think the CG was used solely as a time saver, because they put some effort into utilizing the idiosyncrasies that can make CG work well. Another great recurring visual motif of these races is the shots inside of the car. We really get to have an intimately tense scene where the racers can express themselves in an inner monologue. We get to see how these racers actually feel, not just the competitive facades that they've been using outside of the car. It is a good job of showing the human aspect of our characters, not just their technical abilities. On the topic of music, I have to say, this is probably the best OST of any anime. Every racer has their own theme that just adds to the race in a unique way. The groove and rhythm perfectly combine with the visuals in so many ways. The sheer energy these Eurobeat tracks uphold, it's insane. The percussion escalates the visuals in tandem with the track, and fuses all the visual and audio aesthetics together. Even beside the main Eurobeat tracks, the original background music also helps liven up or bring mood to any scene. Another great directing choice is the decision to stop music tracks at times to show how desperate the race is. While music can really help energize a scene, the dynamic absent of it can ramp up the impacts even more. Before watching Initial D, I didn't really care about racing that much, but the non-invasive exposition and the greatly energetic races really pulled me in. Even if you don't know much about racing, the show does a good job explaining the fundamentals of techniques, and just helps make the races more impactful and enjoyable. As we see Takumi's journey to improve, his relationship with his friends is also explored. In the beginning, as Takumi is indifferent to racing, his friend's enthusiasm for the sport helped push him towards it. Takumi isn't just a bland and easily influenced person though. He has his own hesitations and interests outside of his friends, but his developing enthusiasm for racing is the force that pushes him to continue. One of my favorite characters is Takumi's dad, Bunta. Bunta himself was a street racer previously, and he's a fairly legendary figure in the local area. Bunta and Takumi's relationship is very interesting. Although Bunta is obviously passionate for racing, he has never pushed Takumi to become a racer. Instead, he just gave him a job to deliver tofu. But when Takumi does decide to become more serious in his efforts to improve as a driver, his dad helps him. It's a really interesting mentor-like relationship. Bunta doesn't even act like a teacher really. He just helps Takumi learn his own way, like Bunta learned when he was active in street racing. Bunta doesn't really do a whole lot, but his interesting interactions with Takumi, his past, and his unique perspectives on races and techniques, it's greatly entertaining. Takumi himself sort of starts boring, like most real-life teenagers, but that's just because he hasn't really had anything to be passionate about. We get to see Takumi become less antisocial and more driven, no pun intended, as the series goes on and his passion grows. It's really rewarding to see Takumi in such a personal way, and helps drive his more serious scenes more powerfully. One of Takumi's closest friends is Itsuki. Itsuki sort of starts out as the dumb, goofy friend trope we find in many anime. He's too proudful for his own good, he overestimates his abilities, he brags, he gets Takumi in trouble a lot, he's stupid, and at times he's unlikable. But the thing that's interesting about him is that he actually cares for Takumi. He's stupid, but he's also self-aware at times, and it's powerful when he owns up to his mistakes. Itsuki has a serious side to him. He's not just a gag character. Not only does Itsuki confide in Takumi, Takumi also confides in him. The friendship feels really genuine due to the voice actors and dialogue, and as it transcends their mutual love for racing. As Takumi's passion for racing grows, his connections with other drivers does as well. He gets closer with many other racers, be it previous opponents like Keisuke or previous friends like Itsuki. This is all because of how greatly everyone's passion is displayed. The voice acting really helps show how much racing means to everyone. The first season's ending is just great as well. We see that Takumi's story has only just started, and there are many more opponents waiting to challenge him because of his newfound reputation. Ultimately, as a story about passion and coming of age, it does a great job utilizing its characters and subject to relate to the audience. As we've all wanted or want to be the best in something, we can really connect with these characters, and so it's bittersweet when they lose, even if they were at fault and being dumb. I will say the first few episodes can be a little slow due to its almost lack of direction, but as the narrative really picks up by the first race, it never drops off. Well, maybe in the girlfriend arc, but that's only like 2 episodes. I grew to love these characters and the story as I watched it, you know? The cheesy melodrama and the CG cars only help make the series more endearing in my opinion. Anyways, I'd rate the first stage of Initial D a 8.5 out of 10, so Go watch it. My Akina Speed Stars. Dude, it's kind of a funny reference to the anime.